Welcome. In the last session, I started discussing about kingdom Protista, and we also have seen some features of kingdom Protista. So, in this session, I'm going to discuss mainly the groups of kingdom Protista. So, let's see. So, what are all the groups that are included under kingdom Protista? So, the groups that are included are Chrysophytes, then Dinoflagellates, and then Euglenoids, and then slime moulds, and then protozoans. So these are five groups of organisms that have been included under kingdom Protista. Now we will study each group in detail. So first we shall see about the group Chrysophytes. So here the Chrysophytes, it includes organisms like diatoms and desmids. So these desmids that are commonly called golden algae. So the golden algae, why they are called? Due to presence of a golden colored pigment. So due to presence of a golden colored pigment, these desmids appear in the golden color. So hence they are commonly called golden algae. Right. So that golden colored pigment is fucoxanthin. Is a pigment so that is present and gives it the characteristic color, the gold color. Then these organisms, they are found in freshwater bodies. Fresh waters are the waters who have less concentration of salt, and these are rivers, lakes, ponds, etc. So they are all the freshwater bodies. So these chrysophytes are present in them and also present in marine waters. Also present in marine waters. Okay, right. That is seas and oceans. In them also we'll see these chrysophytes growing, and then these are planktonic organisms. These are planktonic organisms. So what we mean by planktonic? So organisms that are microscopic and passively float, or I'll mention float passively in the water currents. So the organisms that are microscopic and float passively in the water currents, they are called planktonic organisms, right? So as they don't have swimming capacity, so they go along with the water currents, right? So they are planktonic organisms. And the next point, most of the organisms are photosynthetic. So here photosynthetic, which means they perform photosynthesis. They perform photosynthesis, and okay, so which means they are autotrophic organisms. So most of them are photosynthetic, right? Then in case of diatoms, in diatoms, the body is covered by cell walls that are made up of a substance called silica. So the body is made up of, the body is covered by cell walls, and that cell walls are made up of a substance called silica. And right, so these cell walls will be overlapping one another. So the cell walls form two thin overlapping shells. The cell walls form two thin overlapping shells, right? So that two thin overlapping shells will look like, they look like soap box. They look like soap box. Okay, so how they are going to see, right? So as I told you that the cell walls form two thin overlapping shells, and that look like a soap box. So we see here, this is an upper shell and there is one lower shell. So an upper shell and lower shell. So this upper one is called epitheca. So where epi, which means above, and theca means cover, right? And we find another shell that is present on the lower side. It is called hypotheca, where hypo, which means below, and theca, which means again, of course, as I mentioned, cover. Now the organism is present, of course, the organism is covered by these two shells, epitheca and hypotheca. And so those two thin shells make us or give an impression that looks like a soap box. Now, so when these organisms, we know the organisms are planktonic organisms, and they are present, okay, on the surface of waters, right? So when these organisms die, they reach to the surface, they reach to the bottom of the ocean. So here, this is ocean bed, and this is, okay, surface. And here are the organisms usually present, right, in the surface of the water. And once they die, right, so they reach to the ocean bed, and here you can see the shells get deposited. So these shells, all these are shells that deposited on the ocean bed. And this for billions of years it happened. So those organisms, so which are living at the surface of the water, so when they die, okay, they reach to the ocean bed. Of course, the organism inside will undergo decomposition, and what remains will be only the shells. So these are all shells, and I told you that these shells are made up of silica, and because of that, these shells are indestructible. The shells are indestructible, and they they do not undergo any decomposition, and will remain as they are for, okay, billions of years. And so this deposition, the deposition of shells, okay, over billions of years, have resulted in the formation of something called diatomaceous earth. So this is a diatomaceous earth. Okay, so The shells, I mean, the organisms that they live at the surface of water, right? So once they die, the bodies they reach to the ocean bed, the organism inside will undergo a complete decomposition, leaving behind the shells, and that shells, okay, will get mixed with the soil, that is present on ocean bed, and that has resulted in the formation of diatomaceous earth, which took some billions of years, right? And this diatomaceous earth is gritty, so it means it consists of grit, so consists of grit, and because of this the diatomaceous earth is used in polishing. So the diatomaceous earth is used in polishing and then filtration. So even it is used as a filtration of oils and syrups, used as a filtration for oils and syrups. Okay, so that's about the diatomaceous earth, which are formed by deposition of the shells of diatoms, and these diatoms are chief producers in the oceans. So an important point, so diatoms are chief producers in the oceans. So here chief means main, so they are the main producers. So producers means those organisms who perform photosynthesis. So organisms, okay, that synthesize their own food by photosynthesis, that synthesize their own food by photosynthesis. Those organisms, we call them producers. So one example of this group Chrysophytes is Dinoflagellates. Next we will see another group of organisms belonging to the kingdom Protista. So the second group, Dinoflagellates. The second group, Dinoflagellates. Right. So these Dinoflagellates are mostly marine. So mostly marine, which means most of these organisms they live in marine waters, and some of them may be present in fresh waters also. So they are mostly marine, and these are photosynthetic. It means that they perform photosynthesis. So they prepare their own food materials by the process of photosynthesis. Then these dinoflagellates, they appear in yellow, green, brown, okay, in different colors they appear, and even blue or red colors. So they appear in yellow, green, brown, blue or red colors. So these all colors are because of the pigments present in them. So different pigments will give them a different coloration. So just in Chrysophytes I told the golden color is due to presence of a particular kind of pigment like a fucoxanthin. So like this the different of these different groups will have different pigments. Because of that they appear in yellow, green, brown, blue or red in coloration, right? Then coming to the next point, so the cell wall have, okay, there are certain depositions. The cell wall will have a stiff cellulose plates. They have stiff cellulose plates. So cellulose will form or get deposited and forms into stiff cellulose plates. The cell wall will have stiff cellulose plates. So here I have drawn two diagrams, right? So one that is given in the textbook, okay, and here I have drawn a diagram to show you clearly those stiff cellulose plates present on outer surface, so which are present on outer surface. So these are the stiff cellulose plates. So those are stiff cellulose plates, okay, and most of these, so most of them have two flagella. So they will have two flagella. So you can see this is a transverse flagellum. So there is a transverse flagellum, and this one is a longitudinal flagellum. So that help in locomotion. So in this case, so this is the longitudinal flagellum, and this is the transverse flagellum. Okay, right. So that is, the cell wall will have a stiff cellulose plate. So these are stiff cellulose plates which are present on the outer surface of the cell wall, right? And most of them will have two flagella, one longitudinal and one transverse flagella, which will be present in furrow. So you can see here, this is the furrow here. So this is furrow. They are present in the those furrows. So they are located in the furrows. So these flagella are present in the furrows which are present between the cell wall plates, right? And some of these, like the red dinoflagellates, the red dinoflagellates. So these red dinoflagellates can grow in a large number. So they multiply. So the red dinoflagellates increase in number, okay, by multiplying or by reproducing, right? So they reproduce and produce large number of these dinoflagellates, right? Especially in case of an organism called gonilax. So example, gonilax. So this organism, when it grows in large numbers, it results in transforming the blue waters into red color. So they are called red tides. So the gonilox causes red tides. So they are called red tides. I told you already, some of these organisms will have different pigments, and that pigments will impart the color to those organisms, right? And in case of gonilox, they have red colored pigments. So when these organisms are present in huge numbers, okay, the waters, the sea water will turn into red color, and those are called the red tides, right? So the dinoflagellates increase their number by reproducing. They multiply in huge numbers, and then they produce certain sceneries, that what we call them the red tides. And these dinoflagellates can produce certain kind of toxins. So they produce toxins. So toxins are poisons. So a poison substances they will release, okay, like these red dinoflagellates, and these toxins kill kill other marine organisms like fishes. So the toxins are potent, and they are capable of killing some other marine organisms like these fishes, right? So that's a few features of this the overall dinoflagellates. Now let's see the next group of kingdom Protista, Euglenoids. So the third group are Euglenoids. Now these Euglenoids are mostly freshwater. So they are majority of them are freshwater. So majority of them are freshwater organisms, and uh, they are mostly found in stagnant waters, which means the waters that don't move anywhere and they remain in the same place. Like for example, in ponds and lakes, the water will not be flowing, but in case of rivers the water will be flowing. So that is not a stagnant water. So the stagnant water will be seen in lakes and ponds. So these organisms will be growing in such waters, stagnant waters, okay, so which are fresh waters, right? And then they don't have cell wall. They don't have cell wall. Instead of a cell wall, they have a protein rich layer, and that is called pellicle. So they don't have cell wall, but they have pellicle. So this is a protein rich layer. So pellicle is a protein rich layer, and this protein rich layer is present below the plasma membrane. So located below cell membrane, right? And this one, the pellicle gives the organism flexibility. So here, in case of presence of cell wall, so if cell wall is present, then it is stiff and the organism will not have its body movements properly, because the cell wall restricts the body movement. But in case of these euglenoids, I said there is no cell wall present. So instead they have pellicle, and pellicle is flexible, so that the whole organism have some kind of movement. So right, so that's what I mentioned. So it gives the organism flexibility. So here, let's see. I'll take an example of euglena. So this is euglena, right? And most of these euglenoids will have, okay, two flagella. So most of them have two flagella. So one will be long and one will be short. So this is long flagellum, and this is short flagellum. Long flagellum and short flagellum, right? And this is the opening, right? And here below the plasma membrane, I told you there is pellicle. Okay, so I'm mentioning that pellicle with a blue color. So the outer layer is the cell membrane or the plasma membrane, and below that is the pellicle. Okay, right, and this is the opening of this single cell organism. So we'll take it as the cytostome, and this will be the cytopharynx. Is cytopharynx. Okay, and so it has nucleus, right? The rest is the cytoplasm. So the cytoplasm will be loaded with different cell organelles and so. Next point, these organisms exhibit mixotropic nutrition. The organisms exhibit mixotropic nutrition. So here, mixotropic nutrition, which means they are both autotropic and heterotropic. So they are both autotropic and heterotropic. Now let's take this one Euglena as an example. So this Euglena, in the presence of sunlight, it will perform photosynthesis. So Euglena performs photosynthesis in presence of light. So it performs photosynthesis, okay, in sunlight. But during the night time, as there is no light, right, it won't be performing the photosynthesis. Instead, it will feed on some other organisms, means it will act like a heterotroph. Okay, so in the daytime the Euglena is autotrophic. Okay, in daytime Euglena, that I'm in case of Euglena, in daytime it is autotrophic, and in nighttime it is heterotrophic. Okay, so that's what we use the word mixotropic nutrition. So these organisms will exhibit mixotropic nutrition. So in the daytime they are autotrophic, and in the nighttime when there is no sunlight they will be like heterotrophic. And the pigments which are involved in the process of photosynthesis, photosynthesis are similar to that of higher plants. Okay, so I'll write here the pigments of these organisms are similar to those of higher plants, like for example chlorophyll A. So chlorophyll A is a pigment that is involved in the process of photosynthesis in higher group of plants. So this Euglena and those will have same type of pigment like this chlorophyll A, right? So here already I have given an example Euglena. So this is all about Euglenoids. So in the next session we will see about the slime mounds and protozoans.